Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this installment of the Outlands RoyalTea. Our guest today is Countess Ingriðr. Hey, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm super good. It's great to see you.
You too. I miss your face.
It's been a kind of a rough not seeing everybody for sure.
Yeah, it's been weird. I thought I was antisocial. I might be a little less antisocial than I thought I was.
I just had that conversation with someone. Man, I really thought of myself as an introvert until all of this, and now I'm like, oh, I kind of miss people. It's kind
a
of
little bit
bizarre. Yeah.
I'd take like a weekly gathering, maybe.
For sure. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Thank you so much for asking me. I was really surprised when you texted me. I was like, oh my God, you want to know anything about me?
No, I'm super excited to have you on today. I think that you are going to be able to share an amazingly unique experience that we haven't heard so far, given that you are a transplant to the Outlands.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to talking with you about that and about traditions and how traditions are different and your favorite traditions. So I guess we'll just go ahead and get started. So Countess Ingriðr, when I first met you, I remember you talking about this great love that you have for the rapier community. And that standing, and obviously as a rapier person or participant, I guess I call myself, obviously that's very near and dear to my heart, but you were so passionate about discussing your relationship with the rapier community. I'd love for you to kind of share that passion and how that passion kind of came to be.
Of course. So before I was in the Outlands, I wasn't super involved with the rapier community. I knew them. Our fighter practices in Ontir, they'd been together inside. So we were all friends. But when I moved to Ontir, or when I moved, not Ontir, when I moved from Ontir and I moved to the Outlands, there is such a rich history with the White Scarves. We signed the treaty with, I believe, Onsiora, when it became an actual treaty and the White Scarves were created. And our history is so amazing when you think about that, when you think that they started, rapier in a back alley off the site because you're not allowed to fight rapiers. So everybody's going to go across the street and slash each other with an antenna or whatever they were using at the time. And then seeing this community grow and the relationship with the queens, I think, is something that a lot of people forget. And I know that there's a lot of different opinions about this. This is just mine, but it's from the history that I learned. And the rapier community are the queen's men and women and non-binary or whatever.
People. We'll just go with people.
They're the queen's people. It was amazing because no matter where I went in the Outlands, and I didn't know a lot of people in the Outlands when we were reigning, the rapier community just piled out of nowhere, found me, carried my things, took care of me, shared their joy. And it's something that I think the conversation you're thinking of is I have tried to talk about with queens after me of the special relationship that you have with the rapier community, and that they're there for you and you're there for them. And you guys can have this beautiful relationship that as queen, often knights, plug your ears, you don't get quite as much from the armored combat community. Sometimes, a lot of the time, they're more excited about the king, and I don't blame them because I think the king's very exciting too. But it's amazing to have somebody come out of nowhere, have no idea who you are, and say, thank you for being here. You made you're amazing. Let me be a part of your day. And it's phenomenal. I'm just rambling because
So what was your favorite thing about being queen? So obviously you were queen before my time here.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
I don't even remember it very well.
So what was your favorite thing about being queen?
Wow, that's a hard hard question. What's your favorite thing about being queen?
I honestly, like, my favorite thing is seeing the absolute shock and joy and being a small part of making someone's day absolutely fabulous. Like, that's what I love the most.
That is very close to what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I never thought that would be a role that I would play in the SCA. It wasn't on my radar or on my on my gold checklist or anything. I did not think it would happen, and it's something that the roles of royalty is so important to me. The royalty in the SCA means so much to me that I was really terrified of being queen. I was really scared. I was really uncomfortable because I just didn't want to let anybody down. And then as the reality became more natural to me, and I didn't feel like a complete imposter that's like walking around being like, pay attention to me because I'm more important than you or whatever. Like, that's what I was afraid that people would think. I got a chance to meet people that I would never have been able to convince to spend time with me. And I'm not talking about like, oh, they're so popular, but there's people that you never get a chance to see them. You never get a chance to meet them. And I remember Hrothgar being like, go say hi. And I just took off and wandered over and just started entering into people's camps if they would let me and hang out, and just seeing them open up and share their joy with you. Yeah. And it's like a ticket to people being willing to share that joy. It's very interesting. So I think I'm going to agree with you quite a bit on that. But it took a while to get over the imposter syndrome.
It's legit a thing. Like, I had so much anxiety going into Estrella because I was like, what if I'm not the queen that the kingdom needs me to be at this war? Like, that was a real fear that I had going to Estrella was, you know, I don't want to let anyone down. I want to be like this. I want to be the queen of the Outlands that everybody's expecting.
And you were. And you are. And you are the queen of the Outlands. That was something that took me a really long time to realize, is that you are the queen that people want. That's what you are. And you can, I mean, you can do the job how you want to. And after the job's done, you may or may not get feedback you don't like. But at the time, it was really difficult for me to get used to it, but also just being like, that's okay. I'm going to do this. Like, we're going to do this, and I'm going to make this as enjoyable as possible for everybody, and we're going to have a great time, and I'm going to do the best that I can do.
Right.
And nobody's going to be sitting there going, God, I wish you would have dressed better. Certainly embarrassed the kingdom there. And I was totally bucking the trend because so for Estrella, everybody's like, oh, are you going to play Helga Ball? I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to play Helga Ball. and like, people were upset. I had a friend of mine who was a past queen, and she's like, you have to play Helga Ball. That's a thing. And I'm like, I am not doing that. I'm going to lose a tooth. I'm going to break a hip. I'm going to get smushed into the ground. I am completely not a physical person like that. I don't want to play Helga Ball. And then they're like, oh, well, you're going to fight Spear, right? I'm like, no. I have no interest in somebody trying to hit me.
Well, and it's funny because somebody said, actually, it was Martine said, well, what do you think about me fighting Spear as queen? And I said, well, do you want to fight Spear as queen? She said, well, you know, people are telling me that, like, or at least Rapier or something. And I said, but do you want to?
And that was something that I felt very strongly about. So after, when I wasn't queen anymore, and queens would talk to me about that, it's like, look, we have a history of badass queens in the Outlands. They're amazing, and they've had a great time with it. But that doesn't mean that you have to be them. You should be you. And that's one of the things that if queens do come to me for advice and want to talk to me about it, the thing that I say is, if you're pretending to be somebody else, people will reject you. They can see right through it. They can see that you're pretending to be this thing, and that's what comes across as pretentious or whatever else. But if you are yourself, as truly and wholly as you can be, your kingdom's going to love you. You're their queen. And as long as you're as honest to them as they are to you, then that reciprocal feedback is going to make magic. And
yeah. And I think that's the other thing that, I try to advise people when they say, well, what about this thing? Should I do this thing that I really don't have an interest in? And I'm like, the other part of that is we have such an amazing kingdom and such an amazing, generous group of people that if you even hint that that's something you might want to do, suddenly an army of people are putting together armor and making sure your stuff is padded and checking over your. And so it's like, do you really want people to be investing that kind of time in something that you really just don't even have an interest in?
I was terrified of people investing time into me. Even things that I needed help with, I didn't ask for. That if you got a question about what's the advice you'd give a queen, here you go.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
I was really new, and I wasn't new in the SCA. I'd been around for many moons, but I was new in the Outlands, and
Yeah.
I didn't. It was different, it was just different than other kingdoms that I'd lived in. Not better, not worse, just different. And so I didn't know how to make myself open, because I'm a very, believe it or not, I'm actually very shy. And I didn't know how to let people know that, yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love it if you helped me, because I didn't want to inconvenience them. I'm like, oh God, please, I don't want to inconvenience you. What can I do to not make your life difficult?
Right. So what is one of the traditions in the Outlands? Because as I said earlier, and you've made mention that you've lived in a couple other kingdoms. What's your favorite Outlands tradition that we do here that's not really a thing anywhere else?
Our traditions. God, I love them.
Right?
So I'm kind of like an anthropology of the SCA kind of person. Hrothgar is always blown away because I win on inner kingdom law. I don't know why. I just remember it. We've had arguments. He's like, that's not a thing. I'm like, yeah, it is. But what I love the most about the Outlands would be our ceremonies. So I have lived in. This is the third kingdom that I've lived in. I've extensively played in several kingdoms, but because I had a lot of friends and it was all up and down the West Coast. But our tradition of ceremonies is just beyond anything I've seen in any other kingdoms. Our ceremonies for peerages, our ceremonies for crown, for coronations, as the stories were told to me, when the Outlands decided to be a kingdom and decided it was time to separate, they had this beautiful opportunity to decide the kind of kingdom that they wanted to be. And they put a huge amount of stock into the things that they wanted to be known for. And our ceremonies are one of them. And also, I think I'm really irritated that Hrothgar got to go first. He stole all my answers. Our scribal community. A lot of kingdoms, you do not get a piece of art when you are recognized. You get art. I mean, there's some of the most amazing scribes in all the different kingdoms. I am not at all besmirching the art that is available. But in the Outlands, we have a tradition that if you are going to give an award, you have that scroll with you. Yep. And if you don't, you've got an IOU and you know you're going to get into them. And that's just magical, because I know so many people that are like, yeah, I did get an AOA. I know I did. I don't remember when. I can't even look it up because it's been so long, and this was when I was a pirate, and I don't even remember what year it was, and I have no idea what the crown was, and I was totally a pirate, so that was my own personal story there, not besmirching anybody else.
Right.
And yeah, I love that. I love our ceremonies, and I guess the scrolls kind of tie into that. I enjoy the pomp that we give to the game. Yeah. Because I think that that's what we're looking for. I mean, there's a reason why we all found the SCA and wanted a part of it. And it's me, it's my football. I really it's my sport. I like playing fantasy SCA. Like all the boys are always doing this, and I'm like chiming in, like, "Oh, my fantasy 5 spear fighters would be Hrothgar and Alric and Master Bela and you know, and they're like, "Who are you and why are you playing too?" But we give such a great experience in court, and I think that that's really important because it's such a huge part of our existence, right?
Absolutely. So who were your champions when you were queen?
Oh, let's see. So Michael McQuillan was my rapier champion. He was the protector of the queen's heart, and he quite surprised me, actually. I didn't know he was so ruthless. I was like, "Hey, you're a really good fighter." Whoa. And he was amazing. My flower was Seamus, and I think he'd been or rapier chivalry, is that what it's called? Sorry guys, it's been many moons since I've had to remember the exact term. He had been out of Outlands for a while, and he'd come down and he fought in that tournament, and he was just wonderful. He was so courteous and had so much joy, and at the end of the tournament I just wanted to make sure that I saw everything, so I asked all the rapier fighters, because I feel it's very important, especially if you're going to be like, "Oh, you're the best one, you fought better than everybody, or you were more chivalrous than everybody." Like, I'm going to go and ask the people that are dealing with you, because if I think you look super chivalrous and somebody else is like, "Man, you called me a fat jerk," well, like, right here under your breath. And so and everybody agreed. So he was my he was the rapier of chivalry. And then Sir Roland, who is the Baron of Alvaron now, was my champion, was the queen's champion.
Awesome.
He and I had some really fun adventures, and got to go all over, and he's just, it was fun. It was really fun.
Awesome. That sounds like such a fun group of people.
It was, we were a small but very amusing group, and very different personalities, which was so funny. I lucked out in the personalities that I got surrounded by, because they kind of took me with a grain of salt. Just like, they're like, "All right, well, I guess that's a queen." So.
That's awesome. So one of the things that you're obviously known for is how beautifully you always are dressed and how put together your garb always is. And my question is, how did your time as queen translate into the love and care that you put into outfits that you make for other people? Because I know that you've made coronation garb for royalty in the known world. I know you've made you have made some of the most beautiful garb I've ever seen in the SDA. And
I still need to fix the hem on your dress, by the way.
Oh my
so
God.
At some point you need to give that to me, because I'm not sure why that ended up like going up to your hip, but if you get that back to me, I'll fix it now.
But so how does your time as queen kind of dictate the art that you do for other people? Because you make such beautiful garb, and like I said, you're known around the known world for the beautiful garb that you make people.
It's really funny. I found out many years after our reign that there had been a huge misunderstanding, and people thought that I only wanted hand-sewn clothes. And I was horrified, because the terminology had actually been, Hrothgar and I just don't like machine stitching showing on our clothes. And so we just didn't want, like zigzag on the front. And somehow that got translated into Ingrid's an asshole and only wants hand-sewn clothing. And so these amazing artisans were making these clothes for me, and they were phenomenal. And then they're apologizing, or they're just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, it's not sewn by hand." I'm like, "Why would you sew it by hand?" And then people were sewing it by hand. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." But for me, okay, that's going to go into the history of where I'm from. So I'm from Ontario. That's where I grew up. Ontario is a huge kingdom, and it's vastly different in all the different areas of it. But there are some very interesting things about Ontario. And in Ontario, if you're a laurel, you are a knight of the arts and sciences. You're not a knight, but you are the champions of the arts and sciences. Like one of my most amazing memories of coronation in Ontier, I'd just gone up there and they were swearing in the new king, and the arts and sciences champion, who's one of my heroes, Duchess Ludwiga, she's the most terrifying person you'll never want to mess with. She will kill you just with a look. Like, I love her. I want this superpower where she just is like, really? Did you just say that? And I'm like, yes. But she pulled her sword during this ceremony because they're like, what does the champion of arts and sciences say about this? And she pulls her sword and she's like, anybody has anything to say about this king, I'll cut you. And I was like, dang. But that goes into how I feel about art and about the art that I make for people. Is if I'm going to make you something, I'm going to make you something that has just, I don't make things for a lot of people, and it's not because I'm a jerk, but it's because I get really overwhelmed and the amount of time that goes into it, because I have to do it 110%. If I'm going to make you this thing, I'm going to make you this thing. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, and I'm going to hand finish all the seams, and I'm going to put all of this into it because I want you to feel absolutely enveloped in my love while you're wearing it. And I want you to see it, and I want you to think of me whenever you see it. And my time as queen, there was a lot of fear about clothes because of that misunderstanding, because not a lot of people knew me. I didn't have a huge wardrobe. And I've been transitioning into more of a Slavic persona. When I was in the West, I'd started kind of dabbling my toe. My friends Scott and Maggie from Feed the Ravens had sold me some stuff, and Maggie and I would geek out, but I'm also really anal retentive and I don't want to wear anything that I can't talk about yet. So it's like all sitting in a box. So I was kind of like in the process of transitioning too. Mm-hmm. And it just was such a stress that I never wanted another queen to feel that. I never wanted, because I was lucky. Samisawel and Gilly rolled into my house and just set up shop. They just moved into my spare room and started a sweatshop. And all of a sudden I had a wardrobe for Estrella.
That's awesome.
And I never wanted another queen to even have the hint that was a problem. There's so many other things to worry about during a reign that worried that you're not gonna live up to the expectations of your populace because of how you look is not anything that I would ever want anybody to feel. And it does kind of overflow into it because it makes me very happy when people want me to sew for them. And I try to be very honest if I don't have time. So
yeah, for sure. Cool. So
that's a really long answer that kind of skirted all the way around. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So what was the favorite thing? What was the favorite clothing item that somebody made you while you were queen?
Ooh, all right. There were some good ones. Okay. My friends from Ontier did my step-up garb. That is not my favorite. I'm just saying that it was I was blown away. It wasn't just Ontier. There were a couple people from the West too. Sorry, shout out. It was the West Coast conglomerate had come together in a very organized fashion and made me feel so safe that the big scary day was really amazing.
Right.
And that is definitely up there. So also Kalja is fucking amazing and gets everybody like organized, and it was just this amazing pile of artists working together. But I'm gonna say my favorite article of clothing that was given to me during my reign was the white scarf I wore. They did not have an appropriate white scarf for my time period. By appropriate, that is not my word. Domon had come up to me and we were talking about it, and I was just loving his white scarf. You know, he's a little like sorry, Doma, if you're listening to this, but he's got like this fancy clothing. He's always like fancy. He's got this like long flowing scarf that's like blowing in the wind 10 feet behind him and shit. And we were talking about it, and I think I was wearing the ceremonial white scarf at the time with the embroidery on it. It wasn't, not the baby white scarf, but the one that's in the Step Up collection of stuff. And we were talking about it, and he's like, you know, we were actually speaking about this during a white scarf meeting, that we don't have an appropriate time period of white scarf. And I was like, well, I love yours. And he pulled it off his arm and he gave it to me. And I just, that right there, that was the day I stepped up. That was the first introduction into the rapier community of, you are their person and this is the thing. And they're talking to you for 1 second and all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, we were worried about this because we knew that this doesn't match your persona. So blah, blah, blah. Oh, you like this one here. And yeah, I think I was given some of the most amazing clothing. I still have this lovely red underdress that I wear everywhere, and everybody's like, "Oh, did you make that?" I'm like, "No." And that's going to be the most used one. But the one that was really just amazing was that white scarf.
That's awesome. That's such a lovely story. I love hearing when my people do amazing.
Oh, I can tell white scarf stories all day. Right before Estrella, I think some of the white scarves were really worried because I didn't have a huge retinue, because I didn't know how to ask people for help. Right? I didn't. I was sure that people would just be like, "Ew, no." I don't ask questions that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get rejected because I don't have a very strong sense of self. And having people be like, "Yeah, I don't want to help you," ew, because I just didn't understand at the time.
Right.
I'd never been in a royalty position. I'd always been in a service position. So I'd been on several retinues, and it'd always been very exciting to me to be included. But it didn't dawn on me that other people would want to be included with me. So at Estrella, Max and Yaz. I was remembering Yaz, but Max posted this thing on Facebook, which I know isn't SCA or anything, but before Estrella, and he's like, "Hey, funny thing, miss, I remember when I was a white scarf traveling, the coolest thing I ever did was just volunteer to be on retinue. Because we are white scarves, and that's what we do. And there was a queen at Estrella who didn't have people, and I did that, and it was the most fun thing that I ever had." And I had a really amazing relationship with the white scarves, especially after that post, because people realized that they could talk to me, and maybe I wouldn't be the asshole that they thought that I was. Like a lot of people, because I have the RBF, although Simi Swell calls it my resting smug face, which I think plays even worse against me, because it's like, you're adequate, I suppose. But they came and talked to me and helped me. And my friend Andro was amazing. He flew out. He was my away team. He flew to different events. He flew to Ontier with me, crazy man. He brought Anna with him because I was going, and he's like, "I've got all these points. We shall join you." And then Ontier courts, by the way, are like 12 hours long, just so you know. You guys complain about these 2 or 3 hour ones.
I went to their 12th night one time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One time.
The fun thing about Ontier 12th night that people seem to forget is that it's almost like a traditional court. You don't have to be there the whole time. You all can like tag out in the background. The kingdom is so big that they're going to be talking about people that nobody knows because it's one section, then it's another section. And so what my girls used to do is that they would, and boys, I'm a sexist. I did not realize this, but I am too busy like sexually discriminating across the board. My peeps would set up just like a pile of blankies and pillows and rugs, and like they're all these amazing nomadic women. So you know, it's like the only thing we're missing is like a hookah or something, because they're like, "Who wants handmade baklava?" And I brought this, you know, damask coverlet to sit on that I wove myself, or and so they like make this little nest out in the hallway, and you go and you sew, you have a bitch and stitch, you pop into court for the things you want, you have a drink, you hang out with your girls, and it's just this amazing experience. So Ontier 12th night can be really fun, but if you are sitting in Ontier 12th night, potty breaks.
So we discovered the hotel bar. That was our biggest discovery on your 12th night.
The on your 12th night that I went to as queen was very funny. I learned that being at altitude is a thing. As I drank the king from Amtgard, like Amtgard region, he was drinking mead, and I had a legitimate bucket behind me full of cider, and I've been living at 5,000 feet, so I didn't really put it together. And so I'm trying to like give him booze, and I'm drinking booze, and then like I offer him one, and we're about like hour 7, and he's like, I don't know how you're still standing. I'm gonna slide out of this throne, and I was like, what? And then I realized I was at sea level, and wish I could have utilized that to my advantage.
That was definitely my superpower at Penzik.
Ooh, that must have been fun.
Yeah,
they're trying to get you drunk.
Yeah, my friends are like, well, I'm gonna have to go to bed now. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna walk back to my camp, and they're like, oh,
you can walk?
Are you walking? I'm like, yeah. And the next morning, like, how you feeling? I'm like, I feel great. And they're like, ooh, take the volume down a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, sorry, are you guys hungover?
I have no volume control generally. I'm trying to keep this far away from you so I'm not shouting.
Well, my dogs like have absolutely lost their minds, so I apologize. Like I've got
I can't hear them
prancing around, and I've got people barking, and I've got people. Well, when I say people, my dogs have lost their minds. So
as they do.
My son came and captured my one that was pacing around on my wood floor. So what is the Outlands award that you loved giving the most?
Well, we always say the AOA, and the AOA is the most amazing award, because the thing is, everybody remembers that. And like I said, I'm really mad that Hrothgar got interviewed first. You stole all my answers. I just want you to know those were all mine. He didn't know anything about the SCA before me. But
and the best part is, like, we separately were like, okay, you work on your guests and I'll work on my guests. And then we got together and we put the list together, and I was like, you're doing Hrothgar the week before, like the show before I'm doing Ingrid? And he was like, well, yeah. And I was like,
it's fine. It's okay. He'll just sit there with better answers than me. No, I would say AOA for sure. That's the most magical experience. Because for me, what the AOA is, hey, you get it. And it's just this acknowledgement of like, yeah, you're a part of this. You're here, and we're happy you're here.
Yeah.
And I was overwhelmed with being able to be a part of that. But the Walker of the Way, I'm going to say, is also a really fun one to give. Just saying.
Who was your guys' Walker?
Anne.
Which Anne?
Anne by God.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to think of a different way to say it, but no, Anne by God was my Walker of the Way, and I had a lot of fun with that because Hrothgar and I were driving to an event one day, and we were trying to come up, because that was honestly the hardest thing of us, was trying to figure out the Walker of the Way, because there are so many amazing people. There's so many amazing people. Like, how do you come up with the thing that you're like, you can give one?
One. And
you're like, but
yeah.
And so we were driving, and I'm kind of a random person. And I'm like, what about Anne? And he's like, I'm sorry, what? Because we weren't talking about that. And I was like, how about Anne? That's the Walker right there. And he's like, yeah, but I'm giving it. And I was like, oh, shit, fine. And so he did it super sneaky like, and he called Matilda up and was like, I want to give you my token, you're amazing, my cordon. Sorry, forgot that, didn't give that one out. And he calls Anne up, and you can see that Anne's just like, la la, I'm gonna get a cordon too. That's so sweet that he did it separate than Matilda, so I get to be my own person. And she's like walking up, and then he's like, bam, and her face was just like, and that one, it was fun because of the personal experience that was included with it. But if I had to pick an award, definitely the AOA, being able to be the person that participated with these individuals in the SCA and was able to be the one to acknowledge them. There's nothing better. There's nothing better than that.
So I'm going to look at a couple of questions. What is the strangest thing you came across during your reign?
Who asked that?
Lady Rio?
Oh, okay, that's not who I thought it was. Okay, I've got a funny story. This is not PC, by the way, guys, so this is going to be hilarious. But this is Her Majesty Atenvelt's favorite story to tell about me, so I'm just going to tell it. Whatever. I have decided that if there are embarrassing stories out there, you should just own them and keep them. Same as bad photos. But Doma, apparently he's just going to pop back into my story. He was going to Japan before my step down.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what do you want? And me being me, because I'm a little random, I was thinking about those vending machines that are all over Japan. You can get things from like fizzy beverages to like flip-flops. And I was like, I want vending machine panties. Now, to specify, I wanted clean white granny panties that came out of a vending machine. You know, you're like in a like a nylon egg. You remember those?
Yep.
So Tam and Catherine were going to step up after us. We're all in a little thing. We were supposed to have this big, beautiful outdoor event, get carried off in a boat, and then it snowed 7 feet or whatever it was. So it ended up being inside. And so we're in this tent that was set up inside for us for royal prep. And Doma comes in, and I'm hanging out with Morgan and Liz. And what I heard was open it. And I was like, eee! And I open it, and it's like a thong and a can. And I'm like,
huh?
And I'm playing with it because I'm like, I got vending machine panties. And Liz is like, are those dirty? And I was like, no, they're just vending machine panties. You would get me dirty. Oh my God. And they were dirty panties. And Doma was like, I cannot believe what I had to go through to get these for you, because I had to go into a weird back out. And I was like, ah! And so
Oh my God.
I have these things that you've only heard about on the internet.
Oh my God. It's awesome.
So that would be the weirdest thing that came across in the rain, and I am waiting. Just you wait, Morgan. You're gonna get that one of your step downs. He keeps like teasing me about it, and so I'm just like waiting to like sneak it into like a large S because it's still in the paper bag in my sewing room.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Maybe that was TMI, but you asked.
No.
I'm always down with the.
No, that's great. I love that. That's awesome. Okay, here's another one. What is a couple that you would love to see on the throne of the Outlands? And that came from Lord Kal-bardr.
Couple I'd like to see as king and queen of the Outlands. Hold on. I'm gonna think about this. That I was not expecting that question. So well, Facebook ruins everything.
Yes.
Because I'm forgetting their SCA names now. But I just remembered them. Barrick and Beatrice. I would like to see them reign. I think that both of them are phenomenal people, and they care. And that, to me, is what's really important, because a lot of the times I see the reasons why people want to reign are varied, and all of them are valid. None are better. Nothing's better than the other. But the ones that line up the most with me are, I want to do something special. I want to do something that improves everybody else's reality. And they, I think, will do a phenomenal job.
Yep.
And I would like to see that very much.
That's awesome. Very cool. What advice would you give a fellow transplant? And that's from Sabia, formerly of Atenveldt.
So Antir and the Outlands are very similar in many ways. They seem kind of hard to approach. on tier, I don't want to hear it. You guys know that, all right? Like, you guys have really turned it around, and you're all very welcoming, but it can be very intimidating. And the Outlands reminded me very much of on tier when I moved here. And it can feel like you're on the outside for a while. Mm-hmm. And you wonder if anybody's ever going to let you in, because you're like, hey, I'm here. And they're like, are you though? And you're like, okay, cool. But being a transplant in so many different kingdoms, I would say that what has always worked for me, and what I think will work for everybody, is to be you.
Yep.
Don't listen to if anybody tells you that you shouldn't talk to or listen to anybody, don't talk to them, because whatever their issues are with that individual are their issues. I think that you should approach everybody with openness and excitement and be willing to share your knowledge. And I would also, this is something that I strongly encourage a lot of people when they go to different kingdoms in a more like mover and shaker sort of thing. Do not try to put your traditions into the kingdom you've moved to. Those are not their traditions. Those are the traditions from where you live. So try and learn the traditions of where you're at. And if you want to improve them, then that's great. But first learn them and have them feel safe with you. Because that's something that I saw a few people do in other kingdoms. They moved into them. Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
And kind of tried to be like, well, this is how it's supposed to be. And it's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be. That's how, that place is.
Yeah. For sure.
I saw that happen in the West a couple of times, but not so much here.
Yeah. It's I think sometimes being quiet or being reserved is interpreted in such the opposite way of why the person is quiet or reserved. I think oftentimes they're the type of person that processes, or they're the type of person that's trying to learn, or they're the type of person that likes to observe before, speaking. And I think that a lot of times that people interpret that as unapproachable when really it's just.
Okay, the weirdest thing somebody said to me was, I don't know how you can be so aloof and yet so approachable at the same time. And I'm like, you think I'm aloof? Like, what? I just walk around But at least she thought I was approachable too, so that was nice. But yeah, it's I'm not so much in the reserved, I suppose, but when I'm in an unfamiliar situation or I'm nervous, I sweat a lot, and I kind of hang back. And as queen, it's pretty easy, not necessarily to hang back, but I can throw Hrothgar out there and be like, "Oh, do the thing!
Yeah,
everybody thinks you're super cool. Go be the Golden Duke or whatever." And he's like, "Fine." And so I could hang back, but then the weirdest thing about that is people often, and it's their own insecurities, and it's our insecurities too. It's all of our insecurities, but we get programmed to think that people that don't talk to you because they don't like you.
Right.
When really they're afraid you don't like them. So,
kind of a weird thing.
It's an annoying cycle.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, this one is from the Black Duke, and he says, "Would you want to be queen again?"
Oh. Okay. Yes. When Hrothgar asked to fight for me, I did not want him to. Funny story that people don't really know, because when I moved here, everybody just assumed that I was looking for the hot stick and was the bimbo that I think I got called the next name that will not be mentioned, because I had moved into a kingdom and found a single duke, and then he decided to fight and crown and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So I didn't want him to fight for me because I didn't feel super settled in the Outlands yet. I'd only been here for a year. And people were still talking to me like I didn't really understand the SCA, which is fine, but because I also look 12. That's another fun thing about me. So people are like, oh, you're like 18. I'm like, eh. But there were a lot of things that I wish I could have done differently because I didn't understand. I think the first reign of anybody is such a blur of confusion and learning and understanding who you are now. Like, it really is a change. I always find it interesting that they don't have vigils for kings and queens, because people are going to be peers, and every single person that could ever have an opinion is going to walk through your door and tell you how they think you should be as a peer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good. You should know the expectations of your rank. But I feel that kings and queens should also hear the expectations of their kingdom, of what they need and what they want. Because often you don't find this out until like later on. You're like, oh, wish I would have known that. But I don't remember a lot of it because it was such a confusing time. I didn't really want Hrothgar to fight for me. We didn't decide that he was going to fight for me until the day that he fought for me. He had sent in the letter. He's like, I'm sending in the letter. We drove up there. I was like, I don't know. And the morning of, I was like, fine. This is something you want to do? Fine. Do it. And we kind of approached it. It was really cool because we approached it with it. It didn't really matter if we won or lost. He just wanted to fight for me. And it was really romantic. And I love the consort relationship. And being queen was an amazing experience that I think is really amazing for some people and not amazing for other people. There are people out there that do not want to ever be queen again, and that is okay.
Yeah.
Like, and there are people that would like to be queen again, and that's okay. You know, I hesitate to say that because then it just sounds like, yes, I want to be in charge of everything. But what I really would like is to have the chance to utilize the influence that I now know comes with being the queen, to participate with the populace about art and persona and all of these things, all of these cool things that I just love, and I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't want to change traditions. So the weird thing about our reign is people were trying to change the way that the queen's champion was selected at the time, which I do think is great. I think that the queen should select her champion because this person is with you the whole time. Me, on the other hand, I also really like a tournament, and I wasn't about to be stepping on any toes. So I was like, no, I am not going to be the one that changes that, because a lot of people kind of wanted me to start changing some of the more long-standing traditions. And like I just said, if you're new, don't come in and try and tell people how their traditions are going to be. And I think Anna and Bela actually changed that later, which I think was a good couple to have done that because they were established. But I would definitely do it again because there are so many things that I could have brought to the table that I didn't.
Yeah. And, it's interesting that you bring that up about like meeting with peers. There are kingdoms where they do a princess tea right after you win.
Yeah, the West does that.
Yeah, the Mid does that.
If you've never been crowned before.
Yeah. So you come and you have tea with the princess, and then the prince and princess do meet with all the royal peers. That's one of their circles that they do at Crown. So that's
really cool.
Yeah, it's cool, and it's kind of I was never queen over there, but I would imagine that as a first-time queen, that could be kind of comforting because that's where the roses kind of like, hey, what kind of help are you going to need? And I'm here for you. And it's a group of people that kind of surrounds that and sort of insulates you right when you first, because it's so crazy right when you first win. And
oh my God, everybody's like all up on you. You don't know who anybody is because all you want to do is talk to this person who just won for you, but there's like 70,000 people in between you. You don't know who's talking to you. You've got somebody that's like, I've known your husband for the last 30 years, and this is all the things that I need to tell you. And I'm like, I just want a drink of water and to pee. And so you don't really get a chance to absorb this information that they're giving you. And also, I think, not for me now, but for me then, because I mean, this is 5.5, almost 6 years ago that he won crown for me. The acceptance would have been really encouraging. I'm not saying that nobody accepted me, mind you. Like I don't want people to think, but just that type of acceptance. People come together to share with you and be like, welcome to this fold. This is what we know about this. This is what we learned. We either learned it the hard way or the easy way, but this is what we learned in our time. And you're one of us. And that's what I've tried to do with every new queen since I had the experience that I did. I have tried to, I'll do that before they're queen too. I think Ladies of the Rose need to go to crown. They need to go talk to the women or the consorts, women or men. They need to be a part of that. They need to share, because I mean, that's what I end up doing. It's like, hey, by the way, everybody's gonna be taking pictures of you. Even if you win or not, just smile. Yeah, like, it's gonna suck. Like, you're gonna want to shank somebody, but you put that smile on and you're like, and I will follow consorts around and be like, all right, how you doing? You nervous? Cool. I'm going to sit here with you. You need a drink? You need to walk somewhere? You need this person to go away? Because you'll notice, and I'm sure you did notice, as it gets closer and closer to finals, all of a sudden people come out of the woodwork and they're like, oh, you're my new best friend. You're my new best friend. This is awesome. And you're like, I don't even know you. And so I think that it's very important for past generations to participate and support the next generations. And I think it can get a little difficult because some people there's a little bit of envy, there's a little bit of, I wish that I could have done that. There's a lot of other stuff, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's a natural thing. Mm-hmm. It is, but I think that we have to get over that and come together for our crown, because that's what the game's about. I love the royalty. That's always been my thing. I love court. People think I'm crazy. I love court. I go to court. I occasionally am too loud. Sorry. I love watching people get awards. I love watching people get awards. I don't even have to know them. I'll go to foreign courts. At wars, I'll go hang out in different kingdoms courts just to see people get AOAs or things like that. I love big ceremonies. I love peerage ceremonies just because I get to see that personality that they have. But anyway, I'm on a tangent.
You're fine. This is our time for you to hear about your experience. This is exactly what this is for.
I think it's our responsibility as Ladies of the Rose to, and if we have time, I have a funny story or a fun story about Ladies of the Rose, or at least where we came from. It's pretty exciting.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the Ladies of the Rose rallying around me is the one thing that made me feel like I think I could really do this with the help and having these people to ask questions and in a safe environment where people are going to be like, oh my God, you didn't know that.
Are you so pretentious? I can't believe you even think that. Ew.
I can't believe
think you are.
Yeah. So
I think
that's such a hugely important group. So I'd love to hear your Lady of the Rose.
Okay. So I first heard this story. Somehow Ludwika is like popping all up. Like she's the most amazing woman. Like she runs, I think it's the Virgin Countess. She's an amazing cook too, but she's everything. This woman is everything in Ontier. She's a phenomenal individual. But when I was queen, I went to Ontier, and it was the queen at the time, Stjarna's Lady of the Rose ceremony. It was her first queen.
Cool.
And so I got to participate in the Lady of the Rose ceremony, which is very exciting. I love Ladies of the Rose ceremony. We had a few times recently that the Lady of the Rose ceremony got forgotten, and I got really angry. And I actually, by the way, I'm now on public camera, and I'm like, I want to write the Ladies of the Rose ceremony because I had a great one, and I think we should have good ones because we have good ceremonies. But Ludwiga got up and she told the story with my friend Countess Liesel of where countesses and duchesses came from. So way back when, and I might grab my phone to grab the actual dates, but I'm just going to give a generic one. If you guys want to know the actual dates and stuff, I can fill you in. I went and got the story from Ginny. So men could be counts and dukes. Women were ladies of the rose.
Okay.
They didn't get to be a countess. They didn't get to be a duchess. They were just a lady of the rose and not nearly as important as this lovely duke. So the funny thing about where I grew up is with big names from the Mist of Time. So Duke James Greyhelm and Paul of Bellatrix are two people that in the West, they were similar to our Arton and Johann. You know, they just battled it out over it. And it was one of James and Verina's reigns. And I think a lot of people have been fed up with it, but they were the ones that finally did it. And they created countesses and duchesses because there was no equality whatsoever. And it was really Verina's push to make sure that the work and the effort that the consort puts into this, because yes, it's one thing for y'all to win the tournament. And don't get me wrong, I am the patriarchy and I like watching you beat the heck out of people with sticks. It's a thing. Love it. But being queen is a lot of work because, as I always tell everybody, the whole point of being royalty is for everybody else. It's not for you. Yeah. You really don't get a lot. Everybody's like, oh, you get all those sweet royalty commission bucks or whatever it is. And it's like, no, I get a shit sandwich every day. Thanks. Not always. There's good stuff too. But you are the embodiment of the ideal. That's the thing. We're not reenacting medieval times. We have toilet paper, and I'm really happy about that. I have a shower and deodorant, and it's good. We are the embodiment of what the populace believes in. I think the crowns of Caid say you exist because they believe, and I think that should be in every crown everywhere because it's a good reminder. You look at it right before you put it on. And the queen has such a high standard in people's minds. You have to be like, I know so many queens that are like, oh, I'm not feminine and now I have to be feminine. How am I going to be the epitome of femininity? Right. And like, or I'm not a fighter, or all of these standards that people have for being the queen. It's so much pressure, and you, like, the king gets to win the crown and he's the badass and he wears his armor and he's just like, yeah, I'm a badass and I'm wise. But the best thing about being the king is you can just be quiet. And everybody's like, oh, he's stoic. Very wise.
It's totally true.
I'm fairly certain that Hrothgar is just sitting in there doing like multiplication tables or whatever. But everybody's like, he's so deep. And people were acknowledging them and being like, you're amazing. You're so amazing. Look, you're a duke. You get all these things. But ladies of the rose, y'all, they entered after all the other peers. It wasn't a royal peer. They, like the order of precedence, they were not acknowledged for what they provided. Okay. If the king gets to be acknowledged for what he's provided, what about all of this? Because it's the queen that ends up with the nurturing and ends up with trying to solve the problems that the populace is experiencing. The kings are involved. Like Hrothgar and I did everything together. I'm not trying to sit here and like, and there I was slaving away while he just sat around doing times tables or whatever. But people come to you for specific things, and it's a lot of effort. And so I told the story in a rush because I was so excited about it. But there was a lot of inequalities, and Verina just thought that it was, and several other people. You don't just do it by yourself, right? But it was unacceptable, and they changed it, and they made it so that the women at the time, who put just as much work into the position, received the same recognition afterwards, which I think is very important, because It's really easy to hate the queen is the other thing. It's really easy to hate the queen. And I hate this about us as a society, as people. It's just how we are. But we're like, I bet she was a cheerleader in high school. Fuck her. Like, where does this come from? And yet it's so easy. People are just like, I hate her. I bet she's a snob. Like, I actually had people text me and they're like, I'm really sorry. I said a lot of mean things about you when Hrothgar won crown for you because you just looked like such an asshole.
And you're like, no, that was my terrified face, but thanks.
I'm like, no, that's just my face. But it's a lot of work, I guess. And I feel that it's a really amazing job.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to have this discussion because you always sound, it sounds false in some way. You're either going to sound false if you say, oh, it was amazing and perfect in every way. And people are like, fuck you, you just spoiled jerk. Everybody did everything for you. Or you're like, oh, it was so much work. It was doing so much all the time. And it just felt really thankless. They're like, whatever, you got to be queen. Fuck you. Shut up. You know, and so it's like you just lose either way. But it really is an amazing experience.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We are at our time, but I've so much just enjoyed this last hour. This was such an easy interview, and thank you for your time as queen, and thank you for being an amazing Lady of the Rose and a great example of that support that is so critical to an incoming or serving queen. It really does make the job so much easier knowing that you have the support of the other Ladies of the Rose. So
I hope that every queen after you, and including you, everybody knows that we are here. I am here. I'm never mind. I'm not going to talk for any of them. I am here. Even if I don't go on Facebook or whatever, you can get a hold of me. You will always have clothing. You will always have a shoulder to cry on. And there's a huge community of people out there for you.
Yes. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's it for today. So join us in a couple of weeks. His Majesty will be having a new guest, and I'm a terrible partner in crime because I'm completely blanking as to who that might be. So log on to the Facebook group and you can find out who our next guest is. That'll be in 2 weeks. So I think the very first weekend in December, first Saturday. So stay tuned on our Facebook channel and have a great day, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.